This channel is made possible by viewers like you. My viewers, subscribers, and patrons greatly help to keep this channel going. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for all of you. Please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any uploads. And if you'd like to go the extra mile, please check out my Patreon page. For just $1 a month, you'll get access to what I'm working on, previews of upcoming content, and even early videos, along with other tier options for those that are interested. Thank you, and now on to the video. So it's no secret that I'm having a blast with Robocop Rogue City. It is a game that I'm enjoying and even replaying because of its high quality. But I thought that it might be fun to poke at some of these silly reviews by the pretentious critics and game journalists. While Robocop Rogue City for sure has areas you can discuss for areas of improvement, some of these critics don't seem to get it at all. I will leave links to the articles discussed in the description if you want to see the sources for yourself. So let's start off with Gamespot, which did have some good things to say about the game, but it also had some odd bits. The reviewer points at the shooting not being the most compelling, and while there are moments that live out that power fantasy, the late game turns shootouts into a slog. I have to disagree with this. Part of this might actually come from how this person decided to level up and develop their character. Personally, I found the action to stay consistently enjoyable, and there is a pretty good ramp up to the aggression from your foes throughout the game. You can really feel like a god when you're fighting against human opponents, because you can usually freely toss them around, punch them, and of course, just shoot them into oblivion. This never gets old. But the game does a good job of keeping the firefights varied and engaging so that repetition does not set in. For one, there's a good set of enemy variety that is introduced throughout the entire campaign. For example, you might have a guy running towards you with explosives, or bikers that provide you with fast-moving targets. Better yet, you can shoot them off their bike, or you can even throw their bike back at their allies. Snipers can prove to be a real danger because they'll pick you off from afar, and are often packed in with other enemies. Then in the late game, the stakes increase, and the game does a good job of having that all ramp up. So for the regular gangsters, while you can easily take them down, the amount of them greatly increases. There are heavily armored opponents who put up a good fight, along with robot-like foes that have some cool destruction as you blow pieces of them off. So I wouldn't say that the action ever becomes mundane in the late game, but rather if you choose to not upgrade your Auto 9 well, or dump points into the combat damage, you might feel like some of these fights are going to go on for a bit longer than you'd want, because you chose different upgrades. Keep this all in mind as you play and upgrade accordingly. Games Radar seemed to attack Robocop for its lower budget, along with its quieter moments to the game. When it comes to the budget, sure, Robocop does have that AA feeling to it, and I mean this as it feeds into its charm. I want to bring something up as well. I would argue that Rogue City does a great job with using its limited budget than many big productions do with their huge budgets. For example, Rogue City accurately represents the look and feel of the original film perfectly. This looks like it's consistent with the films, which is why I liked how you could really take in the environments with some exploration, especially with the police station and downtown. Then let's look at the in-game models. While Lewis is not played by the same actress as the one in the films, the actress here does a great job with her, and the developers bring that attention to detail for her model. And if you want to discuss budget, I think Teon made the right choices to put more money into certain things to try and create an authentic experience. The big one being is that bringing back Peter Weller. While I love their Terminator Resistance game, probably the one thing I wish they were able to do was get the original cast to come back for their voices for their characters in the game, like say Michael Biehn for Kyle Reese. But these developers were able to do this for Robocop. I'm sure getting Peter Weller was no easy task, nor was it cheap. And now for my comparison. Why is it that a game like Robocop, with its budget, has a more accurate and better models than say something in Spider-Man 2? Just look at the comparisons with MJ and Lewis. MJ is supposed to be gorgeous, and they uglied her up for the sequel. Maybe sometimes a lower budget makes these developers have to act smarter and really use those funds well, because that is all they have. Eurogamer's review is one that kinda cracks me up because they take issue with the narrative and not being harsh or questioning to the nature of the police as a whole. They seem to imply that policemen are generally not good, and that elements of the plot should be fully explored to try and question these aspects to it. Robocop's universe is one that asks a lot of questions and explores various topics. The original movie is easily one of the best pieces of science fiction. I honestly find it refreshing to have a throwback piece of entertainment, or one from a throwback era, where we see cops as as the good guys. They go after the criminals and then need to deal with the threats from other areas, like in this case with OCP, causing a lot of problems for them. Personally, I don't think we need to have every game or piece of entertainment to explore a more gray or even harsh look at police work. In real life, many of these officers are individuals trying to just do a job to provide for their family. Sure, you have bad actors here and there, just like in any occupations, but for Eurogamer to imply that policemen are not good, and they want that explored within the game, is where you can see their agenda lie. And this type of agenda is honestly one I have grown tired of. I am sure that many media outlets would have probably provided even higher scores to Rogue City if the developers opted to add some current day stuff within the game. I'm happy that the developers opted to not do this and not add any of that stuff here. What Teon was able to do was create a great piece of entertainment for a property that many people love, and many of us grew up with Robocop, either through the films, cartoon, action figures, and maybe even the live-action TV show. The story, themes, and satire are rather timeless, and even relevant to this day. I think in that sense, the game nails that sort of stuff. How the news broadcasts, even within the game, will range from something horrific to something very silly. This is exactly what we're seeing in our own news cycles. We are living in the satire in many ways. Now sure, does Rogue City go through some elements that were explored in the films, like with Robocop's humanity? Sure. But I also like how it's done in the game. It does not feel like we are recycling, but rather exploring this element of the character further. Rogue City doesn't just rely on what made the film great, but rather uses it to create something new and expand on it. I might even go as far to say that Rogue City is this year's Top Gun Maverick, a sequel to an older IP that manages to respect the original while providing something new, and just some good old-fashioned escapism. And in the case of this game, we need more stuff like this in this medium. I thought it would be fun to look at some of the points being made by some of the game's journalists and critics and see how sometimes they just don't get it. Yeah, sadly for them, this game doesn't go out of its way to check many of their boxes to hit those precious social justice points that they want for all their games. I would even argue that many of these critics don't even care for the medium that they're in. And in fairness, I do present my bias for the game as well. I love Rogue City. I think it's great, and I think that Teon has really proven that they can keep reviving older IPs into first-person shooters. Because unlike the critics reviewing it, these developers just get it. As I brought up earlier, it does make you wonder why no one is talking about how this developer was able to pull this off so well with probably a considerably smaller budget than say something like a Sony exclusive, where we keep seeing the game budgets have ballooned. Here is a title that looks good, authentic to the source material, plays great, and is a compelling 15-hour single-player game. Maybe we should be looking at how Teon is doing it, because whatever they're doing seems to be doing it right, and smartly as well. Do you like this type of video? Were there any comments made by game journalists towards this game that you thought were completely off base? Let me know all of it in the comments down below. If you're interested in being notified of new videos, please hit the subscribe button and bell. And if you would like to support the channel and get early access to content, please check out my Patreon. All of the links will be at the end of this video and within the description. And thank you very much for watching.